Awesome. Jen, I'm just going to go ahead and have you mute yourself
Yeah.
for me, if you would. Thanks. Hey, welcome everybody. Chris Quinones here in Colorado Springs, and welcome back to What's Cooking Good Looking, a weekly happy, healthy hour cooking session that I started in this month and am really enjoying. And for those of you that aren't able to join live each week, you're able to catch the replays and get all the information if you have in fact registered for the series. So this week or tonight, we're going to be cooking a lentil dish with some red pepper and basil, just simply sauteing it down and serving it over basmati rice. Now, beans and rice is a very common dish around the world, and it's often used for cleansing purposes. In Ayurveda, we have a traditional dish called khichdi using yellow mung beans or lentils with seasonal spices and some ghee along with basmati rice. And so the lentils are really like the superheroes in the legume family. And they're small, but they pack a lot of punch. There's a lot of protein, a lot of magnesium, and they are generally the easier legume to digest. So for those of you who might have a lot of airy qualities and bloating or gas, then you might have difficulty processing or digesting beans. And the general rule is the bigger the bean, the bigger the bloat. And there are things you can do, like soaking them ahead of cooking and adding digestive spices to help digest lentils if you do have problems digesting them. And I know if any of you have problems digesting lentils for tonight's workshop, I would say experiment with another kind of legume, if that works for you. There's an Ayurvedic spice called hing or asafoetida. It's actually a resin of the plant, and it comes from a particular node in this plant. It's like in the stem itself. It looks similar to bamboo with this little like rings and sections. And this resin is particularly good to balance vata and help with digestion. So you can find it at your local Indian grocer, and it usually comes in a white powder, and it's kind of stinky. So it might stink up your pantry if you keep the package open. So make sure you do keep it closed. And that's just something of interest that you might that I wanted to share with those of you who might have any issues with digesting legumes. So what I'd like to do is get your basmati rice started, or if you're working with another rice or grain, that's fine too. We're going to be cooking the legumes, which will take about 40 to 50 minutes. So I'd like to have the rice cooking alongside that. I'm using my Instant Pot here. And the reason why we use basmati rice, white basmati rice in particular in Ayurveda, is because of its cooling properties. It's a lot easier for the gut to digest as compared to other rice grains. Actually has been stripped of the husk, and that tends to sometimes for people irritate the stomach lining. So it's a very easy grain to digest amongst all the grains. So that's why we use it. So I've gotten mine started in my Instant Pot. You go ahead and start yours. And once you've gotten that going, we'll move on to our lentils, which you're going to use 1 cup of lentils, which you've rinsed really well, sorted any any rogue lentils or any stale ones or small pebbles or stones sometimes are in the mix of small lentils or small legumes like lentils. And once you've got that sorted out, go ahead and drain them really well, put them in a medium saucepan with 3 cups of water or broth. I'm just using filtered water here. And turn that on high just to bring it to a boil. Welcome. Go ahead and mute yourself, Ada. Once you've connected, and we should be good. So we've started with our rice, and now we've rinsed our lentils, and we're getting that started. So this particular recipe, the lentil saute, is from a cookbook by Christina Perello called Everything You Wanted to Know About Whole Foods But Were Afraid to Ask. I found on PBS years ago. She has, I don't know if it's still going, but she had a weekly cooking show, and she's very passionate about medicinal cooking. And I got hooked on her show. She was really campy. Like, she's got this friend musician in the corner who plays guitar and sings like really cheesy songs while she's in the kitchen, but it's charming. And she has a lot of knowledge around using whole foods medicinally and how to best work with them and making it the sensual experience that it is. So I really love her. This is her cookbook that we're cooking from tonight, and that's the lentil, red pepper, and basil saute. So this is her cookbook. She's awesome, and I highly recommend it because I just love the passion with which she even writes with. You can tell that she is a bona fide foodie, and so she's in good company, or we're in good company with her recipes. And if I remember correctly, I believe she's a cancer survivor. So a lot of her knowledge was through her own experimentation around managing her symptoms through using food. And so while she's not a doctor or medically trained, she has embodied knowledge around how to use these properties in a therapeutic manner. And that's really what the practice of yoga and Ayurveda are rooted in, is in the self-observation and experimentation. So, we can talk and wax poetic about an intellectual vantage point of some theory, but it's not until we've had the lived experience that you really know if that's a good fit for you. Does that resonate with your own genetics, with your own immunity, with your own intuitive nature? So yeah, right on, Christina Perillo. We love you. And this is the recipe we're cooking from. So we're gonna let those lentils come to a boil. It's interesting because her recipe cooking the lentils has no spices. It's basically like add water, maybe a pinch of salt, bring it to a boil, cover, lower it, simmer it like you would rice. Now, I think that's because later in the recipe, we're going to be adding some spices like cumin and onions and garlic and some other seasonings, some of those pungent tastes, some of those rajastic foods that are particularly balancing for the season of spring with its heavy, damp qualities. Those heating, stimulating foods like the onions and garlics and spices bring a healthy energy, bring a circulatory energy, bring a enlivening energy. So I think that's why she probably keeps the lentils pretty blandly seasoned, quite frankly, in the cooking process. But you do you. I'm gonna just, because I'm doing me, I'm gonna kick it up a notch and put a little bit of my savory spice blend that I just normally have on hand and throw some of that in my lentils, just because I know that it has the qualities of turmeric and basil and fennel, some of the other spices that I just normally cook lentils with. It's quite common with khichdi prep. So I'm just gonna put maybe like a quarter of a teaspoon in with the cup of lentils and water for my personal palate. And like I said, once that gets boiling, cover it, turn it down to low, time it for about 40, 45 minutes or so. And while that's cooking, we'll move on over to our honey balls, and we'll start making those and shaping them and put them in the fridge so that they can start to chill and get more well formed while we finish off with the lentils. So we've got sweet and savory tonight. And one of the things I really like about this particular recipe with the sesame honey balls is that it is a great sweet treat for those who are looking to lose weight. That typically the sweet taste in Ayurvedic medicine is associated with tissue building. We recommend the sweet taste be favored when someone is coming from an emaciation or some kind of undernutrition, those kinds of degenerative processes or atrophied muscles. We would recommend the sweet taste to build it up. But honey is very different. And honey has the unique property of being very heating. So it's a sweet taste, but it's very heating. So what that means is that it's particularly catabolic. It breaks down tissue, it liquefies, and it helps detoxify fat soluble toxins. And that is really why it is so flippin' magical, among other things. Raw honey is antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral. It's used in a lot of remedies for wound care and healing. In World War II, it was used on the battlefield to treat open wounds. I've used raw honey masks in my bodywork practice over the years as a wonderful cleanser for the face. So yeah, this recipe allows for a sweet treat that helps you lose weight. There aren't many recipes I know like that. So I'm really psyched that we're going to be adding that in. So I'm just going to wait until my lentils have come to a boil so I can get that situated before we move on. Now, sesame, some of you know, is the king seed in Ayurvedic medicine. The sesame seed is used in so many traditional formulas. It is sweet tasting, it is bitter tasting, it is astringent in nature, it's warming in nature, it's also oily and heavy. So it makes for a really wonderful substance to transport other medicines, other herbs, which is why so many of the Ayurvedic formulas and even in the culinary recipes of Ayurvedic cooking involve cooking with sesame seed oil. It's a wonderful vehicle to temper those spices that we're working with, which we'll do tonight, actually. So now my water's boiling here. I'm gonna just give this a little bit of a stir. Make sure none of my legumes are at the bottom there. And then I'm going to turn that down. And cover. Set my timer for 40 minutes. We can always check it if it needs more. And we'll let that be. So, woo! Drain a little bit. Might have been ambitious putting it in this size pot. So we good? We've got our lentils going and our rice going. Put that aside. Let's move on to our sesame honey weight loss balls in a food processor. You're going to measure out your almond meal or almond flour. I think it was 2/3 of a cup in the recipe list that I gave you. Just double check that. That beeping was just my rice in the Instapot telling me that it's done and will now just be on warm for the rest. So for your honey balls, we've got 2/3 of a cup of your almond meal. We're going to add 3/4 a teaspoon of ground cardamom to that. 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And if you're using a little bit of orange or lime zest, and because it's optional, you'll include that as well. So get all of those items into your food processor first. And if you are using zest, it's about 1/2 teaspoon. I'm using some lime zest with my little microplaner here. Lime and cardamom go well, very well together. Lime is also a cooling citrus. So it makes for a really good antidote to inflammation and excess heat in the body. So if you're feeling like you've got some inflamed joints, start incorporating some more lime juice or lime rind into your diet. It's particularly good, especially the white pithy part of rinds that you inevitably get a bit of. Very astringent and is particularly good for the blood. Just gonna make some zest here. About 1/2 teaspoon, put that in. And then in a small frying pan over medium-low heat, you're going to add your sesame seeds. We're going to dry toast them. And once they're dry toasted for about 3 minutes or so, when they turn light brown, you're going to take them out of the pan and put them in the food processor with everything else.
Chris, are we putting the honey in there too?
That's the last step, but that will be, once we process everything, we'll add the process to a bowl of honey. So we won't put honey in the food processor, which would be a nightmare to clean. So don't do that. Yeah, we're just getting just the dry ingredients in the food processor so that you have that ready to go. Because once we finish toasting the sesame seeds and they're ready, you want to get them out of the pan right away. They can burn really quickly. And that's why I wanted all the dry ingredients in here first. So turn your heat to medium low, just a small frying pan will do. I believe it's 2 cups of sesame seeds. 2 cups plus 2 tablespoons was the precise measurement. You do you. Sesame seeds, like I mentioned, are the king seed in Ayurvedic medicine. Great transport, great qualities of heaviness and warmth and nourishment, if you will. Also really high in magnesium and vitamin A and calcium. So sesame is a great addition to a diet if you have some osteopenia, osteoporosis, if you're having any particular type of teeth issues like receding gums and things like that. So it's not uncommon to just chew on a teaspoon of sesame seeds as a wonderful teeth whitener and to strengthen your bones and the like. So go ahead and take your sesame seeds and put them in your warmed pan. Stay nearby. You're going to want to mix and shake that pan around frequently. You're muted, Ada. So I can't hear you. Go ahead and unmute yourself first.
So, yeah. Oh, the millet goes in here too?
No millet yet. We're just putting in the almond meal,
Okay.
the zest, the cardamom, and the vanilla.
Oh, the vanilla, okay.
Yeah.
And how much of vanilla? 1 teaspoon?
Vanilla is half a teaspoon. Usually takes about 3 minutes or so for the sesame seeds to start to toast and release their fragrance.
Mhm. Now for my beans.
Yeah.
You want me to cook them? The black beans or?
Yeah.
I cook them a little bit, okay.
And once they're cooked, you can just keep them aside for now. We'll come back to them.
Yeah, it won't be too long for mine, right? Because lentil takes longer.
That's right.
Yeah, they're getting brown. Nice. Toasty.
Yep. Okay. Go ahead and mute yourself again, Ada, just so we can minimize any background noise.
Okay.
So the reason why we often heat seeds before we use them in cooking is to unlock the bioactive ingredients. Heat breaks things down. Heat metabolizes. That's the very nature of the fire element. So by cooking and warming and heating the seeds, you're really unlocking the potentiality of its healing power. So I'm just going to mix this a bit more so the bottom ones get top. And we're dry roasting the sesame seeds, but later in the recipe, when we come back to the legumes, we'll temper cumin seeds with oil. So there's dry and there's oil tempering. There's also tempering spices and seeds with water, depending on your cooking method. So again, just using the fire element to do a little bit of the pre-digesting for our bodies. So once it hits the gut, all those wonderful vitamins and minerals and nourishment is just that much more accessible to your body.
Oh yeah, they're smelling pretty good.
Yeah, right? It's taking mine a while. I'm still learning this stove because it's new to me, and it's an electric stove, so it takes a while to come up to temperature, and I can sometimes get impatient and turn it too high, and then I'm in trouble, which is what happened to me a few weeks ago when I was making the what were we working with? I think it was the first recipe that I did. I had it up a little too high when I was toasting.
My mom has a electric stove, and what I found funny about hers is it turns off periodically. Like it's on to heat it, and then it'll turn off, and then it's on to heat it, and it'll turn off.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of works like a thermostat, right? Like it's going to
Yeah.
kick on to bring it to a temperature, and then at a certain point, it's got to cut itself off, or it'll just keep rising if the heat, stays in constant. So, first world problems, but I do miss my gas stove, And cooking with gas is such a delight. You're literally cooking with the fire element. So there's a metaphysical aspect there, a deeper digestion and transformation and assimilation that's happening in your process. If your sesame seeds are ready to come out of the pan, go ahead and toss them into your food processor with the almond meals. Mine's going to take a few more minutes. I don't want to rush this like I did 2 weeks ago. And once you've added it to your food processor, go ahead and blend that into a really fine mixture. You may just want to allow some opening or vent to your food processor or blender so you don't blow that up with the warm toasted sesame seeds. Yeah, now I'm smelling them. Take that off and add that to our food processor. Myself so you don't hear my blender. Once that's done processing, in a separate medium-sized bowl, you're going to measure out a 1/4 cup of your honey. It's okay if your honey is crystallized, mine is. It gets this way after some time also sitting in the cabinet. And once you've got the honey measured out into that bowl, you're going to empty your food processor contents into it, and with a spoon mix it together until you get a nice sticky consistency that you can eventually form into 1-inch balls. I love trying these new recipes with you guys. One of my favorite things has always been working through the latest cookbook I have in my kitchen. So it's nice to have you guys here. Feel like we're hanging out. Now we can actually see each other in the videos. For those of you just joining us, our previous ones have some technical limitations, so only I was visible on the screen. It's nice to see everybody's faces now. Okay. My brown mixture here. Oh, that smells so interesting. The cardamom and the lime. Has anyone taken a good sniff? Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, go ahead and add that to your honey. Honey. Start mixing. Now, I've never made any of these recipes before, so this is my learning curve too here. I think my bowl might have been a little too small. I'm gonna go with it. And gradually, I can tell the honey is working its way in and everything's starting to clump together. Once you form your balls, you might decide to decorate them with some extra sesame seeds on the outside. And you can store them in a covered container in the refrigerator for up to 4 days. So I have a feeling I would eat these in probably 1 day. This is supposedly going to yield about 12 1-inch balls. So you decide the size. But these are really nutrient dense foods that we're making. This is a particularly great recipe for, like I said, weight loss efforts, in accessing some of the deeper heavy metals that reside in our fat tissue of the body. You know, that honey and the sesame working together liquefy that fat tissue, and that's where the heavy metals like mercury and aluminum, which are so abundant in our daily lives now, reside. And so it's a really great detox and weight loss snack, as well as being pretty nutritive. So, you know, pack a few of these in your workout tote. And when you get out of the gym or after an exercise class, have that pop 2 balls in your mouth to get you to dinner, right? A lot of us spend our time working out at the end of the day. Things are changing now post-COVID. Not as many people are commuting. But that all being said, it's a great nutritive snack. Has anyone made a ball yet? I'm about to attempt my first one. It's kind of like the consistency of moist sand, right? I'm sure that you could add more or less honey to get the consistency and sticky quality to your liking. If you're using almond flour, you might have to add more. Almond meal is the kind of pulp left over from almonds when we make almond milk. I'm using almond meal, so it had a lot of brown flecks in it. What I'm assuming is the almond skin or the almond peel versus almond flour, which might be a bit more refined. All right. I've got my first ball. Hold up your balls. And then go ahead and put them aside and continue on. I'm just taking about a teaspoon in the palm of my hand and closing my fingers around and squeezing it into a ball. And then we'll put these in the fridge to set while we return back to the lentils and the like. Now these sesame honey balls are very heating. So if you are already experiencing a bit of heat in the body, eat these in moderation, okay? Or if you've got inflammation or skin rashes that are flaring up, then you don't want to be eating too many of these, because in Ayurveda, like increases like. So if you're already kicking off a lot of heat in the body, we don't want to add more heat to the equation. Again, anything in Ayurveda is or can be medicine. It can also be poison depending on dosage and timing. Nice, Jenna. Nice. Ada, let's see some of your balls. How are they coming out over there? They're like really mealy, right? They're kind of like grainy. I feel almost like I'm working with sand. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. I imagine you could probably experiment with adding all kinds of different things to this. If weight loss wasn't necessarily your desire, you could probably mix in raisins, chopped dates, figs. These are other foods that would add a building quality. So they make for a really good support post-workout or when you're feeling particularly drained and depleted. I read this afternoon that one alternative to almond meal or almond flour is ground soaked sunflower seeds. So know that moving forward if you ever find yourself out of almond meal, almond flour. But as you start to build your recipe box and start creating your Ayurvedic pantry, you're going to have different staples than you had before. And often almond flour is one of those staples in the pantry of an Ayurvedic kitchen, along with ghee, buttermilk, and lots of whole seeds, the cumin, the corianders, the fennels, the mustards.
Yeah, it's definitely nice when I get the shopping list and I almost have everything already.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And then it goes beyond the actual ingredients and into your gear and your supply, right? Like I didn't have nut bags and cheesecloths as a normal part of my kitchen landscape 5 years ago. These are so cute. I didn't think, I was wondering how these were going to form and look and feel because I thought, honey, it's just going to be one gooey, sappy mess. I was like, do I need to pull out gloves before this cooking class tonight? So I'm glad to see that it's more of a mealy texture. And down to maybe my last ball here. Scraping the spoon that has a lot of honey stuck to it. And then you can clean off your workstation and prepare to slice and peel one yellow onion. In fact, you're going to slice the onion into half moons and pretty thinly as well. A lot of American cooking and even, I don't know about French cooking, I'm not that knowledgeable, but I will say that a lot of basis for many American meals is onions and garlic and pepper, right? Like that's a really quick way to add a big, bold flavor to our dishes. And for some, that's a problem. For those that have perhaps colitis or ulcers in the digestive tract, that is not necessarily a great cooking methodology. And that's where leaning into your culinary spices is another tool to have, so you don't lose out on the sensual pleasure of your nourishment. You don't sacrifice flavor. Awesome. So I've got my balls here, my Tupperware. I'm going to throw a lid on and throw them in my fridge. Let them set up while I clean off my station here and get to my onion and garlic.
I might have missed it, Chris. How did you want us to do the garlic? Did you want us to mince it or leave it whole?
No, the garlic is about 3 cloves. Go ahead and peel it and then slice it really thinly.
Okay.
That's for the garlic. The onion you're going to slice into thin half moons. One of my many jobs as I worked to put myself through college was working in the kitchen. And I got very friendly with the executive and sous chefs and learned a few things. And I learned a really effective way of keeping onions from making you cry is A, to refrigerate them, store them in your fridge so they're chilled when you work with them. And B, make as few passes of your blade through the onion to get the cut that you want. So today we're just slicing them, so it's not a big deal. But if you were mincing or chopping an onion, you would cut it in very specific ways with or against the layers of the onion so that every time the blade passed through, you got so many more pieces without having to run the blade through a million times. I thought that was interesting. Go ahead and slice that nice and thin, slice up your garlic. And then if you haven't already, you're going to want to pull out a deep skillet. Basic knife skills when you're slicing and holding your food, curl the fingers under. When you're holding your substance, you want to curl your fingers under. That way, as you're slicing, if you were to misstep, at most you get a slice of the knuckle versus holding your food with the fingers extended and potentially losing the tip of a finger. So always curl them under like that when you're chopping. And then you can turn the heat on to that deep skillet there. You're going to add maybe 2 teaspoons of either sesame seed oil, olive oil, maybe ghee, if that's what you're working with. And then you will dry roast, or not dry roast, but you'll temper half a teaspoon of cumin seeds in that oil. I'm going to do that on like a medium heat. I'm running low on my ghee. I'm going to have to make some more. I'm going to use ghee because I know my body's tissues could really use it. You want whatever you're going to temper the seeds in to be a pretty big size pan, because we're going to eventually be adding the cooked lentils into it with the saute of the onions, garlic, seeds, and all of that. Coconut oil is also a nice alternative if you're feeling like your body might be having too much heat, or you just want to moderate. Remember, you might also have some leftover cooling masala from last week's recipe, right? So you could always add that into your lentils. So I'm going to add my cumin and give that a whirl for a few moments until they start to snap or crackle, start to release their fragrance. I'm going to move on to slicing my garlic while that happens. Two to three garlic
Do you want us
cloves.
to go ahead and slice the scallions too?
You can. You can, yeah. You'll add and fold in the scallions as one of the final steps in the process. So you've just got some time to fill as the seeds are heating up. Go ahead and prep some of your scallions. Chop and wash your basil. I'm just basically going to allow the cumin seeds to saute with the oil for about 3 minutes. My pan wasn't very warm, so it's going to take me a few minutes to get up to temperature. Gosh, my garlic cloves are massive. Just trying to get the peel off of them. Here we go.
Will you be draining the water from the beans or the lentil?
Yeah, most of the water will be cooked off once the legumes are cooked, but any remaining liquid you're going to want to drain off.
Okay.
Yeah, as I look at mine, I don't have too much liquid left in there at all,
Yeah.
but then I only had 2 minutes left on mine.
Yeah, same here. My moisture is almost absorbed and I got 6 minutes on my timer. So you might also have to test the legumes. You want them tender, but if they need to be cooked more, then just add some hot water and cook for another 5 minutes or so. And again, if you find the pungency of garlic or onions a little too much for your gut to handle, you could try some less pungent foods in the same family, maybe leeks or shallots that would produce a similar effect, but be a little less strong. All right, so I'm starting to smell my cumin release. I can hear the sizzling on there. It's getting nice and warm. So now I'm going to add the sliced garlic and the sliced onion into your pan. And out of curiosity, those of you, Ada, are you receiving or seeing in the replay emails the PDF attachment with the recipe and fact sheet? You notice that when you get the replays? Jana mentioned that when she was getting them, she wasn't getting the PDFs attached in the email, and that concerned me. So if you're watching this live or replay and you never got the PDF with the full recipe on it, let me know. And I want to make sure that that gets to all of you. I may have to just find another way of disseminating that. I'm just going to mix this a little bit and add a pinch of salt. Cooking with salt helps release the flavors of whatever ingredients you're working with. Hey, Scott.
There you go.
It is a really cool thing. It's like connected directly to the microwave.
Right
Like, you
on.
have this perfect little screen. I love it.
Excellent. I'm hearing Wednesday night, sir. Exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
Very exciting.
Right on.
I love
I'm loving it too.
I love
I'm loving it
cooking,
too.
cooking with friends.
Yeah, totally. What's cooking good looking? We'll go national one day, right? All right, so we're gonna saute this for about 5 or 6 minutes. You're actually gonna let the onions brown slightly, okay? So again, keep it over medium heat. We don't wanna rush the process. Use your spoon and move it around a little bit. While that's sauteing, you might want to fish out some of your roasted red bell peppers and cut that into some strips. It would be about the amount of 1 red bell pepper. I bought mine, I believe, already cut in strips. Yeah, so I'm just going to pull out as much as I want and chop that up. But again, that's the beauty of cooking, is you can modulate recipes to your liking, to your needs. You can also roast your own red peppers, but you know, I'm a modern woman. I don't got that kind of time right now. And honestly, I mean, it's not that hard to do, but I think I have a traumatic experience. I mentioned working in the kitchen in college. And I remember the sous chef being really upset with me one day. I don't remember for what, something stupid. And so like my punishment was to make roasted red peppers for the dish. Now, when you're working in a commercial kitchen, that meant roasting and blistering and peeling the skins off of like a 50-pound bag of red peppers. It took me 6 hours to do. And, you know, you oil them, you salt them, you roast them till they're black and charred, and then you take them out and let them rest for a few minutes in the brown paper bag or plastic bag so that they blister. And then once they cool, you can peel the skin off of the pepper, and that's what gives you these. It's a lot of work. Rewarding though, like anything that takes time and effort. Now, this recipe also has an optional 2 tablespoons of dry white wine. I'm not using any wine. I don't have any in the house. I suppose you could use any cooking wine if you wanted. Wine is, again, a rajasic substance. It's warming, it's heating, it's stimulating. All of these attributes good for the heavy, damp qualities of spring. If you're someone who suffers from a lot of allergies and mucus. All right, my timer went off for the lentils. So my onions are still needing some time to brown. I'm gonna check on my lentils and see if I need to add any water and cook them anymore. Red lentils tend to cook a lot easier and faster than yellow or green. Perfect. This would be very soft and mushy. And if they're ready, drain off any excess fluid. I do still have a little bit of fluid in mine. So I'm going to drain that off and then take it off the heat and just put it aside until our onions and garlic are ready to be worked with. Once your onions have browned, you'll add your sliced red peppers, maybe your onion or wine rather, if you're using it, and then add the lentils to that and mix it all together to combine. I'm going to need a few more minutes for my onions here. Some items away. And I'm having so much fun with this sequence, this series, that I've decided I'll continue it through the month of July. So keeping the same day of the week, same time, and just keep it going. I'm having fun. And more people are signing up for this, even if they aren't able to join live. We started with about 6 people. Now we're in upwards of 15. So it's nice to know that this information is getting out there. Now, once you've added the pepper and the wine, you're going to cover it, reduce the heat to low, and cook it for another 3 minutes or so. This is just to allow the flavors to combine all together. I want to turn up my heat a little bit because it's taking a while for my onions to brown. Chop scallions while I wait. About 3 to 4 scallions is all you need. Welcome, what's cooking, good looking? And trim off the top and bottom of your scallions. And we're just gonna slice those. After your peppers and onions have been sauteing for about 3 minutes, go ahead and remove your cover. Stir in your scallions. And your lentils, if you haven't already. And then the last step would be to mix in your basil. That's the very last step. So I'm a few steps behind since it's taking my stove a little bit longer. I'm going to see if I can point this down for you a little easier. This is one of the challenges of being a tall person. I feel like I have to duck so you can see me when I'm pointing it down to my stove. So we're coming to the end here. You can see now my onions have started to brown, mixed with the garlic and the sauteed cumin. Now I'm going to add my lentils. This recipe is supposed to feed 4 to 5 people. Again, your heat should be on low at this point. Really just combining the flavors and mixing things together. Everything's already cooked. Add my scallions. You're going to want to also cut a lemon in half. That's one of your final touches after you've mixed in your basil. So go ahead and tear or chop up your bunch of basil leaves. There are over 60 different varieties of basil. Can you believe that? Originally cultivated in India and then brought through Southeast Asia along the Silk Road and a lot of spice trade routes. So once you've gotten your basil, I'm just roughly chopping mine because it'll wilt with the heat of the lentils. And I love basil, so I wouldn't mind having a larger forkful. So again, basil. I'm going to mix again to get everything evenly distributed. It's looking really pretty in colors, right? All that red and yellow and green. And it's starting to smell amazing too. Again, the heat and fire element unlocking all those bioactive ingredients. And the final touch is squeezing the juice of half a lemon on top. So that's the final mwah at the end, yeah? So another kitchen tip I got, this one from Rachel Ray, is when you're squeezing lemon juice to squeeze it with the cut side up in your palm so that the seeds don't get into the juice. Like apparently like the seeds will fall on your hand and then you can more easily get the juice into the pan. I don't know. You do you. There we go. Squeezing the juice of half a lemon. I imagine that when you heat up any leftovers tomorrow, right before serving, you might also squeeze a bit of fresh lemon just to waken it up. Oh my gosh, this looks so pretty. Go ahead and turn off all your heat. By now, your rice should be ready. And we're ready to plate. So go ahead and grab a plate. Again, you can use any rice you want. This recipe called for basmati rice, which I had cooking from the go. And then spoon your lentil saute over the rice. If it's too dry for you, add a dollop of ghee or oil. And then I'm going to put some of the sesame honey balls on the side for my dessert. They've set up a bit more firmly now that they've been in the fridge. And voila, we have our lentil roasted red pepper and basil saute over basmati rice, followed up with our sweet treat for fat burning and weight loss, sesame honey balls. So once you've got your dish plated, go ahead and hold it up to the camera so I can get a nice shot of everyone's plates. If you're joining us late, no worries. You can. Oh, nice, Jenna. Let me go ahead and raise the screen a bit so you can see my face. Nice. Now Jenna was using green lentils. I used yellow, and Ada used black beans. You know, lentils aren't favorable for her with her digestion. So you can use any legume really, because the quality and properties of it are what make it so therapeutic right now. It's that astringent property. It's cooling, it's drying. That's what we want when we're melting toxins from our fat. We want something to bind those toxins so that with our other habits and practices, we're eliminating them. Yeah, hold it up to the camera, Ada. Let's see it. Woo-hoo! Excellent. Excellent. Let's try and get a nice little screenshot of everybody's meal. Of course, I can't do that holding my plate too. Someone else take a photo for me if you can. Woo! Excellent. Love it, love it, love it. Questions, comments about this dish, anything I've talked about in terms of the qualities of some of the ingredients that we've used? Ada, go ahead.
The sesame street. The sesame seeds, that's cool. I didn't know that about sesame seeds. Yeah.
Yeah, sesame seeds
That's
are powerful, great. And particularly for women.
I mean, I do love them. I do eat them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's nice when you toasted them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You can toast them, grind them into a meal, just like you did with the almonds, and use them in a variety of ways. You can add them to baking products or other baking recipes for some added calcium and magnesium. They're particularly good at freshening breath and whitening teeth, which is why it's good to chew on a spoonful after a meal. Generally, you don't want to consume any more than 3 tablespoons of sesame seeds a day. That's a lot. I don't know who would be consuming that really, but we don't want to. Too much of anything isn't a good thing. But yeah, sesame seeds pack a powerful punch. That's why they're so revered in Ayurveda. Small seed, but very powerful in its properties. Any other questions, comments?
I have a question. I just came in at the end.
Sure.
And you were using basil, and I have some tulsi. Can I use that since you were saying it comes from India?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Tulsi is in the same family with basil, is a type of basil. So absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And, use these recipes as springboards. Maybe when you recreate this, all you have in the house is cilantro. So use fresh cilantro, right? Like anything you got, really, and experimenting with the flavors. I like to make recipes as they're described the first time, so I can see how the author intended for the flavors to work, and then I'll go ahead and tweak it from there. I gotta try this because it smells so good. Where's my fork?
Thank you so much, Chris. This is great.
You're welcome. How'd it come out?
Really good.
Ooh, yeah.
The lemon gives it a nice zest to it.
And it's a very light dish. This is not going to leave you feeling heavy, foggy after you've eaten it, right? And that's the goal here. In Ayurveda practice, early, light dinners. Now, those of you joining from the East Coast, it's a little bit later than would be optimal to eat, but just getting you in the kitchen and starting to build your library of recipes, these can now be some of your go-tos, So, yeah, enjoy. Namaste. And I will see you guys next week. I think next week we are doing tofu, pineapple, bok choy. I think that's next week's.
Oh, tofu is
like
good,
a saute.
Mhm.
I think that's next week's recipe. So stay tuned for that shopping list.
Thank you.
And
All right.
I'll see you guys next week.
All right. Bye.
All right.
Thank
See you next week.
Bye.